Welcome back to Living 808. We're going to spend a few minutes diving into a topic that doesn't often get a lot of attention. Recent and winner back from Ho'oko LLC with straight talk about grief. Well, let's jump into it. Grief, and understand there are different types of grief, too.
Yes, So grief is a very normal and organic emotional response to a loss, normally associated with someone who's passed away. But it can also be associated with the loss of something like a marriage, or the loss of a pattern or behavior that would have been normal in the previous stages of life. And so there are different types of grief, 4 of them in particular. Complicated grief is grief that extends so much into the daily life that it impairs daily life and living. Then there's prolonged grief, and prolonged grief is the same as complicated grief except across a longer amount of time. And those 2 types of griefs can turn into a mental disorder, even major depression or complicated bereavement, because of the way that they so infect kind of the day-to-day living. The 3rd type of grief is traumatic grief, and that's someone's very strong reaction to something that's more horrific. It is not something that they anticipated. It could be a major accident or something in which a person passed away as a result of a tragedy, and so that's traumatic grief. And then the last type of grief is anticipatory grief, and that is something that someone anticipates. Someone has a long-term illness and they know that a person will be passing away, and so they anticipate that type of grief. That doesn't make it any easier, but it is certainly anticipated.
With so many different types of grief that we're talking about, what are statistics for individuals dealing with different grief?
So statistics within the United States show that in general about 2.5 million individuals actually pass away each year. And for every person that passes away, they actually leave 5 people behind that are going to be grieving for them. In general, regarding complicated grief, about 10 to 20% of the population will experience that. And it approximately lasts for those individuals about 1 to 2 months for that. Children in general also experience grief as well too. And within the United States, it's shown about 1.5 million children actually lose one parent by the age of 18. And so it's quite sad. And for children in the United States, also 2 million per year, usually you lose both parents by the time they are 18 years old. And employers also have a large impact as well too, because grief in itself costs about $75 billion per year to the employers.
Wow, you're thinking about it like that. Now, what makes grief adaptive or maladaptive?
So regarding that, adaptive grief is usually something where it's like the normal type of grief. And Risa in a bit will be talking about the different stages of grief. And in regards to adaptive, it's basically they can go back eventually to their normal routines of the day. And they're usually not affected in their day-to-day functioning. Whereas something like maladaptive grief, a person who has experienced a grief, they're internalized it, as Risa was mentioning earlier, about something like complicated or prolonged grief. And what that means for that person is that they're having a hard time with their daily functioning, difficulty eating, going to work, and for some folks, even to the point where they don't even want to live anymore.
And you can break it down into the different stages of it.
Sure, yeah. So an American psychiatrist, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, coined the cycle of grief, but it's actually more the way that people cope with grief and really their response to grieving in general. Not so much that it's linear, but there are stages of that, and people can hop back and forth between the stages. So the stages include, first stage is denial, and that's really just the shock, the first reaction to receiving the news of someone having passed away. And then there is anger, very normal reaction to the loss of someone, and trying to, get beyond frustration and irritability. The next stage is bargaining, in which the person tries to make sense of things. Sometimes they even feel as if they would have liked to trade places with the person who passed away, really just trying to make sense of things. And then we have depression, and that's obviously the sadness piece of it, and really just internalizing kind of what happened. And then the last stage is acceptance. And acceptance is getting around the fact that you lost someone and that you are going to deal with grief and have to move on in your life. And so those are the stages. And again, like I said, they're not necessarily linear. You could jump back and forth, but kind of just the idea of how people cope with grief.
And there's help out there, obviously, so a professional like yourself. How can people get in touch if they recognize that they or someone they know are having some of these issues?
Right. So there are many avenues that they can take. Some of them include informal resources like talking to a friend or a family member or something, but certainly reaching out to spiritual advisors, pastors, priests, and then of course there are therapists like us, and our center offers grief counseling. They could call us at 808-375-7712 or jump online, www.hookollc.com.
It's always a pleasure sitting down and getting some expert advice about a lot of important topics out there. Risa and Edwin, we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have more coming up on